So, here's the thing, I'm a 28-year-old woman, and until about a year ago, I thought my life was just fine. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't bad either. I had a decent job, a small apartment, and, like everyone else, I had a little bit of debt. But then, something completely out of left field happened that turned my world upside down. My grandparents, who were basically like second parents to me, passed away unexpectedly. They were old, sure, but still, it felt like a punch to the gut. I'd always known they were getting up there in age, but I didn't think they'd go so suddenly. When the will was read, I was floored. They left me their mansion. Yes, you read that right, mansion. Huge, sprawling property on a hill, surrounded by acres of land, and filled with antiques that are worth more than I ever dreamed of. It's the kind of place that looks like it belongs in a movie, and for a second, I thought I was still dreaming when they told me. But here's where things got complicated. My cousins, I'm talking about the ones who are, let's just say, not exactly close to me, were livid. Out of all the people in the family, me? They didn't even try to hide their outrage. And I get it, sort of. They'd always assumed the mansion would be theirs. I mean, my dad's side of the family is big, and they've always had this ownership vibe about everything. But I was always the quiet one. I didn't try to stand out. I didn't try to be better than anyone else. I just loved my grandparents, and they loved me. And somehow, that translated into me getting everything. It's not that I wanted it. I didn't exactly need it. But when it was offered to me, there was a part of me that couldn't refuse. And now I'm stuck in the middle of a nightmare. It started with subtle digs at family gatherings. Must be nice to have the house, huh? Not sure if you're cut out for maintaining something like that, things like that. And at first, I thought they were just bitter but harmless comments. I thought it would blow over. But then, it didn't. One by one, the requests turned into demands. They wanted me to give up the house. They wanted a cut of the inheritance. And then the threats came. At first, it was all underhanded. "We'll see what the lawyers have to say about this," they'd whisper. And I laughed it off. Who actually sues family, right? Well, apparently, my cousins are that type of people. It all came to a head a few months ago when I got a letter in the mail. A real legal letter, not some casually worded note like before. It was from their attorney. And it wasn't just one cousin this time. No, now it was all of them, every single one. They were trying to sue me, claiming the mansion was supposed to go to all of them, and that I wasn't the rightful heir. The will had errors, they said. The will was coerced, they argued. They even had the audacity to say that my grandparents didn't really love me the way they loved their own children. Yeah, that stung. You want to know the worst part? They didn't just threaten to take the mansion. They threatened to ruin my life. They were going after my job, trying to dig up dirt from my past, anything they could use to make me crack. And the worst part was, I didn't know what to do. My grandparents were never ones to keep things in writing, never ones to give me any kind of legal proof of their intentions. It was always about family. And now, my family was coming after me. The mansion was everything to me. It was my childhood, my memories, and a piece of my grandparents I couldn't bear to lose. But it was also now my nightmare. Every time the phone rings, every time an email pops up, I feel my heart drop, because I know they're just waiting for me to slip up. Waiting for me to crack and hand it all over. But here's the thing about me, I'm not backing down. I don't care how much they scream or how many legal loopholes they try to find. This mansion isn't just some piece of property, it's a symbol of my family's love, and I won't let anyone tear it away from me. But the legal battle? It's just starting, and I know this is going to get way worse before it gets better. So, yeah, my life is pretty much a mess right now. But one thing's for sure, I'm not giving up without a fight. Things started spiraling out of control faster than I could process. At first, I thought it was just another phase, a petty attempt to shake me up. But the more I ignored it, the worse it got. My cousins weren't just annoyed anymore. They were angry. And I wasn't prepared for how far they were willing to take it. A couple of weeks after the legal letter arrived, I got an unexpected knock on my door. There was a lawyer standing there, holding a thick stack of papers. "Are you my name?" he asked, his voice cold. Before I could even respond, he shoved the papers in my hand and said, "This is a formal request to vacate the property. You have 30 days to comply, or will be forced to take further action." I stood there in shock. My legs felt like jelly. I had no idea what to do. How could this be happening? How could they possibly think they had the right to take everything from me, when my grandparents had made it clear in their will that I was the rightful heir? But that wasn't all. The threats didn't just stop at legal papers. The following week, I started receiving anonymous phone calls. No one would speak, just heavy breathing on the other end. Sometimes I'd pick up, hoping it was just some prank, but other times I'd hang up before they could say anything. It felt like they were everywhere, lurking. Like they were watching my every move, waiting for me to crack. Then it got more personal. I started noticing small, subtle changes around the mansion. Nothing big, nothing that would immediately raise alarm bells, but enough to make me feel uneasy. The back gate was left open one morning. A few of the antique items I'd kept locked away disappeared without explanation. And there was a weird, cold draft in the attic where I stored my grandparents' old things, things that had no price tag, but meant the world to me. I told myself it was just my imagination running wild, or maybe even me overthinking everything because of the stress. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. That's when my cousin Rachel, probably the most entitled and aggressive one of the lot, showed up at my door one evening. She had that look on her face. The one she always gets when she's sure she's going to win. She strolled in like she owned the place, making herself at home, sitting down on the couch like she hadn't just tried to rip apart my life. "I'm not going to waste time on the formalities," she said, crossing her arms. "You and I both know you're in way over your head. That mansion isn't yours to keep. It belongs to the family, and the rest of us have a right to it." I could barely keep my hands from shaking as I tried to keep calm. "Rachel, the will was clear. I'm the one they chose. It's mine." She smirked, shaking her head. "Oh, sweetie, that will doesn't mean squat. The rest of the family's already talking to the lawyers, and we're not going to let you get away with this. I don't know if you're really this naive, or if you just don't care, but you're going to lose everything." Her words hit like a ton of bricks. I felt my stomach twist, but I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. "What do you want, Rachel?" She leaned in close, almost whispering. "I want you to sell it. Sell the mansion, and I'll make all this go away. No more lawsuits, no more threats. You can walk away with something. I'll even let you keep a little bit of the inheritance." I stared at her, my heart racing. It was so cold, so calculated. She wasn't even pretending to care. This wasn't about family anymore, it was about control. "I'm not selling," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "I'm not giving it up." She sighed dramatically, standing up. "Well, you'll regret that. We'll see how long you can hold up when everything starts falling apart." That's when I started noticing the real signs of just how far my cousins were willing to go. The next day, my car was keyed, badly. My phone started receiving threatening texts, some from unknown numbers, others from people I'd never even heard of. I had to change my locks on the mansion, but it didn't stop there. Then it got even weirder. I found strange footprints in the garden, and the security system kept getting hacked. It was like someone had a personal vendetta against me, determined to make me pay for something I didn't even do. I couldn't handle it anymore. The pressure was crushing. I was starting to wonder if Rachel and the others were capable of doing something worse than just legal threats. Was it possible that they'd go as far as sabotaging my life in ways I hadn't even thought of? Could they actually be plotting something dangerous? I thought back to my grandparents and all the memories I had with them in that house. I thought about their love for me and how they'd made it clear that this mansion was my legacy. My heart ached with the weight of it all. I had no intention of losing it, but at what cost? Suddenly, it wasn't just about holding onto the mansion. It was about protecting myself, my safety, my future. I had no choice but to dig in my heels and fight. But now, I wasn't just fighting for property. I was fighting for my life. And with every passing day, the stakes got higher. The question wasn't just whether I'd lose the house, it was whether I'd even make it out of this battle intact. The days after Rachel's visit felt like they dragged on forever. I was constantly on edge, feeling like the world was closing in on me. I kept expecting more threats, more intimidation tactics. But what I didn't expect was how quickly the situation would escalate. It started with the little things. You know, things you'd think were just coincidences if you weren't paying close attention. I'd leave the mansion, lock up tight, come back later to find the front door ajar, even though I was sure I'd locked it. Or I'd find my things moved around, nothing valuable was gone, but it was clear someone had been inside. My heart would race every time I stepped through the door. What were they looking for? And why were they playing these mind games with me? But that was nothing compared to the phone call I got one night. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to ignore the unease swirling in my stomach. The mansion was still too quiet, too lonely. I hated the silence now. I just couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was coming. Then, the phone rang. It was a private number, and I didn't recognize the area code. Hello? I answered, my voice shaky, though I tried to keep it steady. You should have listened to Rachel, the voice on the other end said, low and cold. My blood ran cold. I didn't recognize the voice, but it was clear they were part of this mess. My cousins? I didn't know. But they were definitely connected to whatever they were trying to do to me. Who is this? I demanded, my grip tightening around the phone. There was a long pause, followed by a sinister chuckle. It doesn't matter. You'll find out soon enough. Then the line went dead. I sat there in the dark, my heart pounding in my chest, wondering if I was just overreacting. Maybe I was being paranoid. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I couldn't ignore it anymore. They weren't just trying to take the mansion from me. They were trying to destroy me, mentally, emotionally, and maybe even physically. I had to do something. But what? How do you fight a fight when you don't even know who's on the other side? The next day, I went straight to the lawyer's office. I wasn't taking any chances. I needed legal advice, real advice, from someone who knew what they were talking about. When I walked into the office, I could barely breathe. Everything felt so heavy. Are you okay? The lawyer, a sharp-looking woman named Sarah, asked when she saw my face. I could tell she didn't expect to see me so rattled. But then again, I don't think she knew how bad things had gotten. I'm not sure anymore, I admitted, sinking into the chair across from her. I'm not just worried about the lawsuit anymore. I'm scared. They're not just coming after me legally. It feels like they're trying to scare me into giving up, but I don't know how far they'll go. Sarah's expression softened. It's clear they're escalating. I've seen these kinds of tactics before, intimidation, manipulation. They're trying to force you to crack, to make you doubt yourself. But don't let them win. If they're willing to go this far, it's more than just a legal issue, it's a personal one. I nodded, taking in her words. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. This wasn't just about the house anymore. This was about my safety, my mental health, my peace of mind. They weren't just messing with a piece of property, they were messing with me. Sarah advised me to start documenting everything. Every phone call, every strange occurrence, every odd thing that happened at the mansion. You need evidence. They'll try to twist everything, and you need to be prepared. So, that's what I did. I started keeping a log of everything, times, dates, details, anything that felt even remotely suspicious. It felt tedious, but the more I wrote down, the more I realized just how much was going on behind the scenes. And then, the situation took another turn. It was late one evening, and I had just finished a long day of paperwork when I heard something outside the window. A soft tapping, almost like a knock. I froze. Was it one of my cousins? Were they outside, waiting for me to make a move? I crept closer to the window and pulled the curtain back just enough to get a glimpse of the yard. What I saw sent a chill through my entire body. There was a figure standing by the tree line, barely visible in the dim light. I couldn't make out their face, but they were definitely there. My first instinct was to run and lock the doors, but then I stopped. What if they were trying to get me to make a mistake? What if this was some kind of twisted game? I waited, watching. The figure didn't move for what felt like an eternity. Then, just as quickly as they had appeared, they vanished into the darkness. The whole night, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I kept checking the locks, the windows, even the attic, as if expecting someone to be hiding in the shadows. But nothing. The next day, it hit me like a ton of bricks. They were playing me. This was all part of their strategy, to make me paranoid, to make me feel like I couldn't trust anything around me. It wasn't just about the mansion. It was about breaking me down until I was nothing. They wanted to strip away every ounce of confidence I had left. I wasn't going to let them do it. I had to stay strong. No matter how many late-night phone calls, no matter how many strange figures in the yard, I couldn't let them see me sweat. They'd underestimated me, and I was done playing their game. But as I sat there, staring out the window at the empty yard, I couldn't help but wonder just how far were they willing to go? How much worse could it get before I broke? I couldn't take it anymore. The waiting, the constant pressure, the looming feeling that they were just out of sight, ready to pounce the moment I slipped up. It was eating me alive. And as much as I wanted to pretend I could keep my cool, I knew deep down I couldn't keep living like this. Something had to give. The day it all came to a head started like any other. I was at the mansion, pacing around, constantly checking the locks and peering out the windows. It had become a reflex, and yet, I never felt safe. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest as I tried to focus on something, anything, that would keep my mind from spiraling. But then, my phone buzzed. It was an email from my lawyer. The subject line was short and to the point, urgent, you need to read this. My stomach dropped. I'd been waiting for something, anything, to move this forward, but I had no idea what was about to hit me. I opened it. It was a new court filing. My cousins had upped the stakes, and now they were asking for more than just the mansion. They were claiming that I had been negligent in maintaining the property, accusing me of letting it fall into disrepair. They were calling for me to be declared unfit to manage the estate, demanding I hand it over to someone else who could properly care for it. They even had some fabricated evidence, pictures of the lawn supposedly overgrown and damaged, which I knew were taken weeks after I'd had the place mowed and cleaned. I read that email 3 times, letting the words sink in. How did they get photos of my property? Had they been here the whole time? How much more were they planning to do to destroy me? I slammed the phone down onto the table, my hands shaking. My cousins had gone too far. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was personal. They were trying to destroy my reputation, my life, all while making me look like a careless, ungrateful grandchild. And I was done letting them play me like that. I didn't waste any time. I called Sarah immediately, practically yelling into the phone. "You have to stop them. This is getting way out of hand. I need to fight back, hard." She reassured me, but I could tell she was just as shaken by the new developments. "We'll make sure they can't pull this off. But you need to get everything together. If they want to play dirty, we can play just as dirty." I was done playing nice. That afternoon, I decided it was time to confront them. I wasn't going to sit back and wait for them to ruin my life anymore. It wasn't just a matter of standing up for the house anymore. It was about standing up for myself. I grabbed my phone and called Rachel first. She picked up on the second ring. "What now?" she snapped, already sounding bored. "No more games, Rachel," I said, my voice firm. "You've gone too far, and I'm not going to let you and the rest of the family drag me through the mud anymore. If you want the house, you're going to have to fight me for it. But trust me, you won't win." She laughed, and I could hear the smugness in her voice. "You think I'm scared of you? You're nothing without the mansion. You're just some broke girl who doesn't know how to handle anything bigger than an apartment. It's over." "No," I shot back, my voice louder now. "It's not over. You're the ones who messed with the wrong person. And I'm done letting you walk all over me. I'll see you in court." I hung up before she could respond, heart racing, but I didn't let myself feel fear. Not this time. I gathered all my evidence, every document, every phone log, every picture, and even the ones I'd taken of the damages they'd fabricated. My lawyer was right beside me the whole time, helping me piece everything together. "This is it," she said, after reviewing the pile of papers. "If they want to fight, they're going to get one." It was time to turn the tables. A few days later, we filed our counterclaim. This wasn't just a fight over the mansion anymore. It was a fight for my dignity, my family's legacy, and everything I'd worked so hard to preserve. The truth had to come out. My grandparents wanted me to have this house. They trusted me. And I wasn't about to let my cousins twist that into something ugly. The court date arrived faster than I'd expected, and I was a bundle of nerves as I walked into the courtroom. But once I sat down, it hit me, this wasn't just about the property. It was about my future, my peace of mind, and my right to stand up for myself without being intimidated into submission. Rachel and the others were already there, sitting across from me with their smug smiles. But I didn't look at them. I kept my eyes on the judge, trying to block everything else out. I couldn't afford to let them see me sweat. The trial was tense. My cousins were ruthless, throwing every lie and accusation they could think of, hoping something would stick. But I had something they didn't, the truth. I had the pictures, the records, and most importantly, I had my grandparents' will. They couldn't deny it, it was clear who the house belonged to. And when it came time for me to speak, I didn't hold back. I stood up, took a deep breath, and spoke directly to the judge. I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't ask for my grandparents to die, and I sure didn't ask for this mansion. But it's mine now, by their will, and I will not let my family tear it apart for greed and lies. I love them, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect their legacy. When I finished, I could feel the weight of my words in the air. I wasn't just fighting for property, I was fighting for my right to be heard, to be respected, and to protect what was mine. The room was silent as the judge deliberated. My heart was pounding so loud in my chest, I could hardly hear anything else. It felt like the longest wait of my life. The courtroom was dead silent as the judge took his time reviewing everything. It felt like hours, though it was probably just minutes. My heart was thumping in my chest, and I swear, every time I took a breath, It echoed in my ears. I could barely keep my thoughts in check, trying to piece together what was happening, trying to hold on to the confidence I'd forced myself to build up. Finally, the judge looked up from the papers and addressed everyone in the room. I've reviewed the evidence. And while I understand there are deep family disagreements here, the law is clear. The will was valid, and there is no substantial evidence that calls it into question. As such, I rule in favor of the defendant. He turned to me. Miss, my name, the property will remain in your hands. I could hardly process it. For a moment, everything went still. It felt surreal, like I was dreaming, like any second I'd wake up and it would all be a joke. But when I saw Rachel's face drop, her smug grin vanishing into disbelief, I realized that this was real. They'd lost. I sat there for a second, trying to control the rush of relief flooding through me. Then it hit me like a wave. My cousins had tried to ruin me, tried to strip away everything my grandparents had left me, and they failed. They had underestimated me. They had underestimated how far I was willing to go to keep the life I'd fought for, how much I'd sacrificed to protect the one thing that meant everything to me. But as satisfying as it was to see them defeated, I knew that this victory came at a cost. This whole ordeal had taken a toll on me. I'd spent sleepless nights, spent too many days second-guessing every move I made. I had to change my entire approach to life, trusting my instincts, standing up for myself, and realizing that family didn't always mean loyalty. Sometimes, it meant betrayal. When I left the courthouse that day, the weight of it all didn't immediately lift. Sure, I had won. The mansion was mine. But the scars would stick with me. Trust was something I would have to rebuild from the ground up, and that wasn't something that happened overnight. Rachel and the others tried to keep up appearances, of course. They acted like nothing had happened, like they hadn't just spent months trying to tear me apart. They still reached out occasionally, with fake apologies or small talk, but I was done pretending. I wasn't about to fall into that trap again. I was done being the quiet one in the background, the one who always took the hit for everyone else's mistakes. That person wasn't me anymore. My lawyer, Sarah, was the first person I called after the ruling. "You did it," she said, her voice warm, even though I could tell she'd been worried too. "You held your ground. You didn't let them wear you down." I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. I didn't let them win. Not this time. That night, I stood in the front yard of the mansion, looking out at the quiet expanse of land. The mansion loomed behind me, like a fortress. It wasn't just a house. It was a symbol. It wasn't just about the bricks and mortar, it was about what it represented, the love and trust my grandparents had in me, the family I was determined to protect. For the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. I was stronger than I thought. And I'd learned more than just how to fight for a house. I'd learned how to fight for myself. The next few weeks were filled with changes. I started clearing out the clutter, getting rid of things that had weighed me down, physically and emotionally. The mansion slowly started to feel like mine again, not just a battleground, but a place where I could finally breathe. I hired a team to take care of things around the property, making sure it was well maintained. And I finally started focusing on what mattered, the legacy my grandparents had left me. They believed in me, and I wasn't about to let their memory fade into the background because of petty disputes. Rachel and the others didn't give up entirely. They still sent occasional messages, still tried to plant seeds of doubt, but I didn't let it get to me. It was like they were stuck in some strange loop, always coming back for more. And each time, I realized I had become someone completely different. I wasn't that quiet, passive person anymore. I had a voice, and I wasn't afraid to use it. It wasn't easy, but I got through it. And in the end, I realized something: the mansion was just a piece of the puzzle. The real victory was reclaiming my own confidence, my ability to stand up for what was mine. The house wasn't what made me strong, it was the decisions I made, the choices I stood by, and the way I learned to protect the things I valued. I couldn't let anyone take that from me, not ever again. My cousins, they'd learned the hard way that you don't mess with someone who's willing to fight for their future. They were going to have to live with the consequences of their actions, just like I had to live with the fallout from everything that happened. But for now, I was done. I was done looking over my shoulder, done questioning every move. I was ready to live my life on my terms, and nothing, no one, was going to take that away from me again.